What do you do when a volcano threatens to erase your town, and all you have is ocean water? In 1973, a tiny Icelandic island fought fire with science, pumping 132 million gallons of seawater onto flowing lava for 160 days. The goal saved their only harbor. Over 220,000 tons of salt blanketed the island. Do you think they will succeed? Let's dive into it. Jaime Island, a remote stretch of land just 5 square miles wide off Iceland's southern coast, was once a quiet fishing town where life moved slowly and predictably. It was the kind of place where doors stayed unlocked, where families passed down fishing boats across generations, and where the ground beneath your feet felt unshakably safe. With Eldfell, the volcano beneath the island, having remained dormant for nearly 6,000 years, longer than the Great Pyramids have stood, volcanoes weren't something anyone ever talked about. The danger felt distant and forgotten. But all that changed at exactly 1:55 in the morning on January 23, 1973, when the island suddenly remembered. Without warning, the earth split open just 650 feet from the town's edge. A glowing fissure tore through the frozen soil, growing wider by the second as molten rock erupted from the ground. The volcano that had slept for millennia had awakened violently. Lava exploded into the sky, reaching hundreds of feet in the air, while flames raced across rooftops and ash began falling in thick, blistering waves. Along a fissure stretching over 1 mile, 40 separate lava fountains roared, some reaching nearly 500 feet high, casting a hellish glow over the town. Seismic data would later reveal that lava was gushing out at more than 3,500 cubic feet per second, a rate fast enough to fill an Olympic pool in under 15 seconds. To those on the ground, it felt like the sky was tearing open. By dawn, a towering volcanic cone had already risen where the eruption began, with lava surging from its base and pushing relentlessly toward the town. It flowed north and east, threatening homes, streets, and the harbor that sustained the island's livelihood. The Icelandic National Broadcasting Service, reporting live at the time, called the scene downright apocalyptic. In a matter of hours, the people of Jaime had gone from fishermen to evacuees, watching helplessly as their island transformed into a battlefield of fire and rock. But what happened next turned a quiet evacuation into one of the most extraordinary survival efforts in modern volcanic history. Just after sunrise, panic swept across Jaime like the thick volcanic ash that soon followed. Although the eruption had barely begun, the danger was already closing in fast. A fissure more than 1 mile long had torn through the earth near the edge of town, and lava fountains were surging toward the harbor, the island's only escape route. But then something rare happened. A westerly wind, unusual for January in the North Atlantic, pushed the choking ash cloud away from the settlement. It gave residents a critical window of time, just a few hours to act. Yet everyone understood the wind could shift without warning. If it did, that narrow chance would disappear instantly. In early 1973, Jaime was home to roughly 5,300 people, according to Iceland's National Statistics Office. That morning, every single one of them became a refugee. In a strange twist of fate, a fierce winter storm just days earlier had forced the island's entire fishing fleet back into port. What was seen as a misfortune at the time now became their saving grace. Because of that storm, boats were ready, fueled, docked, and waiting. Within just a few hours, over 5,000 people were evacuated by sea, many still wearing nightgowns or pajamas. A few others, unable to board in time, were airlifted by helicopter in the final moments before conditions worsened. By the end of that first day, the destruction had already begun. Several homes were gone, either burned by lava or buried under ash. The lava crept forward slowly, but relentlessly, like a tide with no intention of turning back. The air thickened with sulfur, and rooftops sagged under the growing weight of volcanic debris. Yet through the chaos, the town didn't fall apart. That night, for the first time in centuries, Jaime stood empty, an island evacuated, a town on pause, and a volcano still roaring in the dark. By early February, barely 2 weeks after the evacuation, entire neighborhoods on Jaime were buried beneath volcanic fallout. The ash, technically called tephra, kept falling day and night, building up in thick, toxic drifts. In some parts of the town, it stacked more than 16 feet high, according to Iceland's Civil Protection Directorate. Under the crushing weight, roofs gave way. Walls bent and cracked. Homes that had stood for generations disappeared. And yet, the greatest threat wasn't above. Lava was advancing straight toward the harbor. For Jaime, the port wasn't just infrastructure. It was life. It powered the local economy, fed thousands, and connected the island to the mainland. If lava sealed the harbor's entrance, it would end the fishing industry and erase any future for the town. By May of 1973, roughly 300 buildings had been destroyed, some swallowed by lava, others crushed by ash or hit by falling volcanic debris. According to updated data from the Icelandic Meteorological Office, another 60 to 70 homes were buried so deeply they could never be recovered. Infrastructure was collapsing. The island's main power plant had been knocked out. Water lines were torn apart. Even an undersea electrical cable north of the fissure had snapped, cutting off one of the last lifelines supplying essential systems. The concrete reservoir, engineered to resist pressure, was cracked open and devoured by molten rock. Every attempt to stop the devastation seemed to fall short. But still, around 250 volunteers refused to leave. They worked around the clock, shoveling ash off rooftops, reinforcing walls, sealing windows, and building improvised barriers of stone and steel. Every hour they delayed, the lava was a step closer to saving the harbor. A step closer to saving the town. But what they did next turned a natural disaster into one of the boldest engineering battles ever fought with seawater. Before we continue, I have a special 10-second request for all of you listening. If you can help me in any way, just press the notification bell and hit that subscribe button. It means the world. It really supports this channel, and if you do that for me, I promise my team and I will do everything we can to make this show even better for you. Deal? By February of 1973, as the lava crept dangerously close to Jaime's harbor, all conventional solutions had run out. What remained were high-stakes choices, and one radical idea. The volcano had already consumed homes, crushed rooftops, and taken out vital infrastructure. But if the harbor was lost, the island's future would vanish with it. No harbor meant no economy, no fishing industry, no way back. So they turned to the one force strong enough to fight fire: water. Specifically, seawater. It wasn't entirely untested. Decades earlier, small-scale efforts in Hawaii in 1955 and again in Italy near Mount Etna in 1971 had used water to try slowing lava. But those attempts were limited, brief experiments, with little impact. Iceland's plan was in a completely different league. Engineers, firefighters, and local volunteers set up a battlefield of pumps, pipes, and reinforced hoses. They began spraying cold seawater straight onto the molten front, starting with roughly 26 gallons per second. As the jets hit the lava, steam blasted skyward. The surface blackened, cracked, and began to harden. It showed promise, so they pushed harder. More pumps were shipped in. Hoses got longer. Nozzles were upgraded to increase pressure. Eventually, they were pouring as much as 106 gallons of seawater every second, according to data from Iceland's Civil Protection Directorate. The strategy was clear: chill the lava fast enough to force it to solidify, creating artificial rock barriers that could redirect the flow or hold it in place. But the price was extreme. For every gallon poured, steam surged back. On some days, visibility dropped to nearly zero as dense clouds rolled over the island. And they didn't stop. They kept at it for 160 days straight. Seawater blasted directly onto the lava's advancing edge. Hoses screamed under pressure. Steam shot into the sky. Each blast of water cracked and cooled the molten rock, turning it from glowing red to hardened black. But the volcano wasn't finished, not even close. Lava kept pushing forward, folding over itself, expanding slowly, and ignoring the flood pouring over it. The pumps, though heroic, were too few and underpowered for what they were up against. And then came a new threat. Steam thickened by the minute. A blinding white fog settled over the lava field, cutting visibility down to just a few feet. The heat twisted the air. Workers lost sight of the flow's edge. According to a year 2024 engineering report from Iceland's Department of Civil Protection, several hoses melted. Some pumps overheated and failed under pressure. But no one stepped back. Not once. Time was slipping fast, so they pushed harder. Fire trucks were rerouted from nearby towns. Dredging boats joined the operation. Emergency volunteers arrived from across the country. Offshore, a port vessel called the Sandy turned its water cannons inland, pulling seawater straight from the ocean and unleashing it on the lava front. And then, after 15 straight days of nonstop pumping, delivering nearly 132 million gallons of seawater, they saw the first breakthrough. The lava stopped moving. The surface began to harden. The glow faded. A crust, nearly 129,000 square feet in size, cooled in place. That's according to the Icelandic Civil Protection Directorate's 2024 Volcanic Mitigation Summary. It wasn't the end. But for the first time, they had proof. The plan was working. Have you ever seen nature challenged like this? Do you think science can always outmatch disaster? Let us know in the comments. We love hearing your perspective. That first breakthrough gave them something to hope for. But the volcano didn't let up. If anything, it became more aggressive, hotter, faster, and even more unpredictable. The lava was pouring out of Eldfell in volumes the local pumps simply couldn't match. So Iceland reached out for backup. Within weeks, 32 industrial-grade, high-capacity seawater pumps were flown in from the United States, coordinated through an emergency partnership with NATO. This was confirmed in a 2024 report by Iceland's Ministry for Civil Protection. Each of these new pumps could deliver up to 264 gallons of seawater every second, 10 times more powerful than the original system. This was no longer just a local disaster response. It had become an international engineering effort. And though the lava field remained active and dangerously hot, the earlier cooling efforts had begun forming a fragile crust thin but solid enough to carry weight. That's when one bold decision changed everything. Someone ordered a bulldozer to drive across the lava. As the machine rumbled forward, the ground cracked. Smoke hissed from fractures. But the surface held. One bulldozer carved a path more than 330 feet long, enough to extend the steel pipes directly into the flow zone. It was a moment that demanded both bravery and absolute precision. But it wasn't easy. Many of the steel pipes bent or fractured as the lava shifted beneath them. Plastic hoses melted the moment they touched rock unless they were already filled with seawater, which surprisingly kept them intact. Workers had to adapt constantly, dodging vents, replacing broken fittings, and operating in near-zero visibility due to the ever-present steam. Still, the strategy began to pay off. Gradually, the advancing lava started to slow. With every new pipeline installed, the seawater reached closer to the eruption source. And with each cooled layer, a new barrier formed, thicker, stronger, and more resistant. They were gaining ground. But no one could say for sure how long Eldfell would keep erupting, or how long the team could hold the line. What came next was a transformation so strange, it looked less like geology and more like something left behind by another planet. As the seawater kept flowing, the battlefield began to transform. What started as black, smoking lava turned pale and dry. In some areas, the surface went completely white, powdery, brittle, almost like chalk underfoot. But this wasn't just the result of cooling rock. Each drop of seawater blasted onto the lava vaporized instantly under extreme temperatures. And with every gallon lost to steam, salt was left behind. According to the Geological Impact Review published in 2024 by the University of Iceland, more than 220,000 tons of sea salt settled across the hardened lava fields during the operation. From above, the result was unmistakable. Swaths of what had once been glowing magma were now coated in a ghost-white crust. It was a surreal landscape, one carved by fire and then claimed by salt. Workers who remained on site described the surface as crunchy, like walking across gravel steeped in brine. The salt didn't just sit on top. In several areas it seeped into the cracks, forming white veins that laced through the newly formed rock. And even as the surface cooled, danger lingered just below, pockets of hot lava, unstable ground, and pressurized vents still boiling beneath the salt-covered crust. It was a clear reminder, battling nature at this scale leaves scars. Even when water wins, it doesn't come without consequences. For months, it seemed like the volcano held the advantage. But day after day, seawater kept pouring. Crews worked nonstop. Pipes were welded back together. Melted hoses were swapped out. Lava was cooled, layer by layer. Then, on July 10, 1973, after 160 days of unbroken effort, everything changed. The lava stopped. The eruption that had erupted without warning on a freezing January night had finally ended. And remarkably, the harbor, the island's lifeline, had not only survived but improved. The hardened lava, cooled by millions of gallons of seawater, had formed a new ridge that acted like a natural breakwater. According to the Icelandic Coastal Infrastructure Review published in 2024, this volcanic barrier reduced wave impact by 18% and significantly stabilized vessel movement within the harbor. It was a result no one predicted, but one that changed everything. Homes were lost. Infrastructure was torn apart. But the core of the island, its port, its economy, and its future had been saved. Not through luck. Through determination, engineering, and relentless effort. And in the end, it wasn't just Iceland's victory. It became a benchmark for what's possible when humanity refuses to surrender to nature and chooses to fight back with science. Would you call this a win for science or a win for courage? Or both? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe and follow the channel to discover more interesting things. In most disasters, recovery means restoring what was lost. But on Jaime, something else happened. The very lava that had destroyed homes and crushed streets became a resource, a source of energy, heat, and even building material. Months after the eruption ended, scientists confirmed that beneath the hardened surface, the lava was still extremely hot, reaching temperatures of several hundred degrees Celsius. And not just for weeks, but for years. Rather than treat it as a lingering threat, the community saw an opportunity. Engineers and geothermal experts began testing heat extraction systems. According to a report from the Icelandic Energy Authority, these trials led to the installation of one of the world's first geothermal heating systems built directly into a cooled lava field. By early 1974, the first home on Jaime was being heated by the residual energy of the eruption. Meanwhile, the volcanic debris, the tephra, made of ash and rock fragments, wasn't wasted. It was repurposed to extend the island's airport runway, pave new roads, and lay solid foundations for housing. The community was rebuilding its future on the remains of its past. A local school teacher, Anna Bjork-Johnsdottir, who returned in 1974, later recalled her experience in a 2023 oral history project. My new house stood on land that didn't exist a year earlier. We planted grass over cooled lava. We taught children in classrooms warmed by the volcano that nearly took us. The eruption didn't just destroy, it expanded. By the time the lava cooled, Jaime had gained nearly 1 square mile of new land, according to the Icelandic Geological Survey's 2024 assessment. That was a 20% increase in the island's total area. What began as a catastrophe ended in transformation. This wasn't just a recovery. It was a reinvention driven by science, resilience, and a community that refused to retreat. What unfolded on that small Icelandic island in 1973 didn't just alter the course of local history, it became a global case study in human resilience and innovation. As the crisis escalated, news organizations across the world began tracking the story. Scientists, engineers, journalists, and photographers traveled to Jaime to witness something unprecedented, a community that refused to back down. That summer, National Geographic dedicated a full feature to the eruption, calling it a rare blend of science, courage, and rapid response. The photographs, steam rising from lava, bulldozers edging across glowing rock, firefighters soaked in sweat, captivated millions. Iceland's strategy soon became a model. According to UNESCO's Natural Hazard Mitigation Guide, it remains one of the most successful lava diversion efforts ever recorded. Today, the Jaime operation is taught in geology, civil engineering, and disaster response programs around the world. And yet, for the people of Jaime, it was never about recognition. Ask any survivor, and you'll hear the same message. It was about survival, about defending their harbor, protecting their families, and holding on to their way of life. Even now, decades later, visitors walk the cooled lava fields that once threatened to consume the island. They trace salt-lined rocks. They stand on ground where molten earth once flowed and where machines rolled head-on into fire. And they hear the story of one of the coldest, hottest, and most determined fights ever waged against nature. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a like, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support means a lot to us. Click on the video that appears on your screen right now. I hope you'll love this content. Comment below about the next topic you'd like to see featured on our channel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.
Thanks for being with us. Leave a comment, like to show your support, and remember to hit that subscribe button for more exciting videos. See you next time.